The roar of the crowd was deafening. Flashing lights painted streaks across the polished court, reflecting in the wide eyes of 10,000 spectators. This wasn't just any game. This was the conference championship, the gateway to the national finals, and the pressure was thicker than the humid summer air outside the stadium. Number 23, Marcus, the Comet, Johnson, bounced the basketball, his movements fluid and graceful. At only 19, Marcus was a phenomenon. He possessed a preternatural ability to read the game, anticipating plays before they unfolded. His court vision was legendary, his passes laser-precise, and his jump shot, a thing of beauty, seemed to defy gravity as the ball arced perfectly into the net. He wasn't just a player, he was a spectacle. Tonight, the weight of his team, the city, and his own burgeoning legacy rested on his young shoulders. He glanced at the scoreboard, the numbers a blur in the adrenaline-fueled haze. He could feel the nervous energy radiating from his teammates. This game was more than just a win or a loss, it was a statement. A statement that this team, built around Marcus's exceptional talent, was ready for the biggest stage. Marcus had been playing basketball since he could walk, dribbling a worn-out ball on the cracked asphalt of his neighborhood court. Hours turned into days, days into weeks, and weeks into years. He honed his skills, pushing himself relentlessly, driven by an unwavering passion for the game and a burning desire to make his family proud. His mother, a single parent who worked tirelessly to provide for him, had always been his biggest supporter. He knew she was in the stands tonight, her eyes shining with pride and hope. The commentators were already buzzing about Marcus's potential. Some were even daring to compare him to the greats, whispering names like Jordan and James. But Marcus wasn't interested in comparisons. He wanted to forge his own path, to write his own story. And tonight, he had the opportunity to do just that. He dribbled again, the rhythmic thud of familiar comfort in the midst of the chaos. He looked up at the opposing team, the Northwood Eagles, their faces grim and determined. They were a tough, experienced team, known for their physical play and aggressive defense. Their star player, Jake, the Viper, Thompson, was Marcus's direct rival, a player known as much for his skill as for his relentless trash talk and dirty tactics. Marcus knew this game would be a battle. He knew Jake would be in his face, trying to rattle him, trying to throw him off his game. But Marcus was ready. He had prepared for this moment. He had trained his mind as well as his body. He wouldn't let Jake's antics get to him. He would stay focused, play his game, and lead his team to victory. The announcer's voice boomed over the loudspeakers, introducing the starting lineups. As Marcus's name was called, the crowd erupted in a deafening roar. He raised his hand in acknowledgement, a small smile playing on his lips. He could feel the energy of the crowd, the hopes and dreams of an entire city riding on his performance. He stepped onto the court, the polished wood gleaming under the bright lights. He looked across at Jake, who was already smirking, his eyes filled with malice. The game hadn't even started, and the battle had already begun. Marcus took a deep breath, centered himself, and prepared for the challenge ahead. He knew this would be the toughest game of his life, but he was ready to face it head-on. He was ready to fight for his team, his city, and his dream. The opening buzzer was about to sound, and the spotlight was on Marcus, the Comet, Johnson. It was time to shine. This was his moment. This was his game. While the spotlight shone brightly on Marcus, the Comet, Johnson, a darker, more insidious energy emanated from the other side of the court. This was Jake, the Viper, Thompson, a player who thrived on intimidation and psychological warfare. Where Marcus was all grace and skill, Jake was all grit and, well, let's just say he wasn't always the fairest player on the court. Jake wasn't just good, he was calculating. He studied his opponents, not just their playing styles, but their weaknesses, their insecurities, the things that would get under their skin. He weaponized that knowledge, turning it into a constant barrage of taunts and subtle fouls that often went unnoticed by the referees. He was a master of distraction, a puppeteer pulling strings from the shadows. His nickname, the Viper, wasn't just about his speed and agility on the court. It was about his venomous tongue and his ability to strike when his opponents were most vulnerable. He could whisper a cutting remark that would shatter a player's confidence, or deliver a seemingly accidental elbow that would leave them reeling. Jake had been obsessed with Marcus ever since Marcus started gaining national attention. He saw Marcus as a threat, an obstacle to his own ambitions. He felt that Marcus's talent was overhyped, that he hadn't earned the accolades he was receiving. Jake believed that he was the better player, the harder worker, and that he deserved the spotlight more than Marcus did. This rivalry wasn't just about basketball, it was personal. It was a clash of personalities, a battle for dominance. Jake resented Marcus's natural talent, his easy charm, and the effortless way he seemed to glide through life. Jake had to fight for everything he had, clawing his way to the top, and he couldn't stand the thought of someone like Marcus waltzing in and taking it all away. He had spent weeks studying Marcus's game, analyzing his strengths and weaknesses. He knew that Marcus was sensitive, that he valued fair play and sportsmanship. Jake planned to exploit those qualities, to push Marcus to his breaking point, to force him to make mistakes. As the referee signaled the start of the game, Jake locked eyes with Marcus. A cruel smile spread across his face. "Ready to choke, rookie," he hissed, his voice low and menacing. "This is your last stop on the hype train. After tonight, nobody will remember your name." Jake's game wasn't just about scoring points. It was about breaking his opponents, demoralizing them, and crushing their spirits. He was a master of the mental game, and he was determined to use every trick in the book to defeat Marcus. He knew that if he could get Marcus off his game, he could control the entire team. Off the court, Jake was known for his arrogance and his short temper. He surrounded himself with sycophants who catered to his ego and reinforced his belief in his own superiority. He was a demanding teammate, quick to criticize and slow to praise. He believed that fear was the best motivator, and he wasn't afraid to use it. Tonight, Jake was ready to unleash his full arsenal of psychological warfare on Marcus. He was determined to prove that he was the alpha dog, the true star of the conference. He saw this game as his opportunity to silence the hype, to crush Marcus's dreams, and to finally get the recognition he felt he deserved. The stage was set for a clash of titans, a battle between skill and intimidation, between good and evil. And Jake, the Viper, Thompson was ready to strike. Marcus knew Jake's words were meant to sting, to plant seeds of doubt in his mind. But he had been preparing for this game, not just physically, but mentally. He had spent hours meditating, visualizing success, and reinforcing his self-belief. He wouldn't let Jake's venom penetrate his armor. The week leading up to the championship had been a whirlwind of practices, film sessions, and media interviews. While Jake was busy trash-talking on social media and making inflammatory statements to the press, Marcus remained focused on his training. He knew that the best way to silence his critics was to perform on the court. He worked tirelessly on his weaknesses, honing his defensive skills and refining his shooting technique. He studied game film of the Northwood Eagles, analyzing their plays and identifying their vulnerabilities. He knew that Jake would be his primary defender, and he prepared himself for the physical and mental challenges that awaited him. His coach, a grizzled veteran named Coach Miller, had been instrumental in helping him prepare for the game. Coach Miller had seen it all in his 30 years of coaching, and he knew how to handle players like Jake Thompson. He had warned Marcus about Jake's tactics and had given him strategies to counter them. "He's going to try to get in your head, Marcus," Coach Miller had said. "He's going to try to make you angry, to make you lose your cool. Don't let him. Stay focused on the game, and don't let him distract you. Remember, your talent speaks louder than any words he can throw at you." Marcus took Coach Miller's words to heart. He knew that the key to victory was to remain calm and composed, to trust his instincts, and to play his game. He couldn't control what Jake did or said, but he could control his own reactions. He also relied on the support of his teammates. They knew how important this game was to him, and they rallied around him, offering encouragement and reminding him of his strengths. They understood that Jake was trying to target Marcus, and they vowed to protect him and to have his back. Evenings were spent in quiet contemplation. He would dim the lights in his apartment, put on his headphones, and listen to his favorite music. He found solace in the rhythm and melody, allowing the music to wash away the stress and anxiety of the upcoming game. He would visualize himself making key plays, hitting clutch shots, and leading his team to victory. He also spent time talking to his mother, who always had a way of calming his nerves and reminding him of what was truly important. She told him stories of his childhood, of the challenges he had overcome, and of the dreams he had always held. Her words filled him with strength and determination. Despite Jake's attempts to rattle him, Marcus remained resolute. He knew that this game was more than just a basketball game, it was a test of his character, a measure of his resilience. He was determined to prove that he could rise above the negativity and succeed despite the obstacles. He practiced his breathing exercises, focusing on each inhale and exhale, quieting his mind and centering his thoughts. He reminded himself of his goals, of his dreams, and of the people who were counting on him. He wouldn't let Jake Thompson steal his joy or diminish his confidence. As the day of the game approached, Marcus felt a sense of calm and readiness wash over him. He had done everything he could to prepare himself, both physically and mentally. He was ready to face Jake Thompson, to face the Northwood Eagles, and to face the challenge that lay ahead. He was ready to play his game, to lead his team, and to chase his dream. He was ready for the championship. He was ready for anything. He was ready. The opening buzzer sounded, and the game began. The energy in the arena was electric, a palpable buzz that vibrated through Marcus's bones. But as soon as he touched the ball, Jake was on him, a relentless shadow. He was physical, pushing and shoving, testing Marcus's limits. Marcus tried to stay focused, to execute the plays, but Jake's constant chatter was a persistent distraction. "Choke artist," he'd sneer after Marcus missed a shot. "Pressure too much for you, little boy." And when Marcus made a good pass, Jake would retort, "Nice assist. Too bad you can't score yourself." The first quarter was a disaster. Marcus missed his first 3 shots, uncharacteristic misses that sailed wide or clanked off the rim. He forced a couple of passes that were intercepted, leading to easy baskets for the Eagles. He could feel the pressure mounting, the weight of expectations crushing him. Jake, meanwhile, was playing lights out. He was scoring at will, driving to the basket with reckless abandon, and hitting jump shots with ease. He was also getting away with several fouls that the referees seemed to miss, further frustrating Marcus. With each missed shot and each turnover, Jake's taunts grew louder and more personal. He started bringing up Marcus's family, making disparaging remarks about his mother and his upbringing. That was the line. Marcus felt a surge of anger coursing through his veins. He tried to ignore Jake, to block out the noise, but it was becoming increasingly difficult. He started second-guessing himself, doubting his abilities, and losing his confidence. He knew that he was letting his team down, and the thought gnawed at him. Coach Miller called a timeout, sensing that Marcus was on the verge of unraveling. He pulled Marcus aside, his voice calm but firm. "Marcus, listen to me," he said. "He's trying to get to you. Don't let him win. Don't let him control you. You're a better player than he is. Just focus on the game, and let your talent do the talking." Marcus nodded, trying to absorb Coach Miller's words. But as he stepped back onto the court, Jake was waiting for him, a smug grin on his face. "What's the matter, Comet?" he taunted. "Daddy come to wipe your tears? You're nothing but a spoiled brat who can't handle the heat." The second quarter was even worse than the first. Marcus continued to struggle, forcing shots and making turnovers. Jake's defense was suffocating, and his trash talk was relentless. Marcus felt like he was trapped in a nightmare, unable to escape Jake's torment. He picked up 2 quick fouls, further limiting his aggressiveness. He was hesitant to drive to the basket, fearing that he would get called for another foul. He was playing scared, and Jake knew it. The score was lopsided, the Eagles leading by a significant margin. The crowd, which had been so supportive at the beginning of the game, was starting to grow restless. Marcus could hear murmurs of disappointment and frustration. As the halftime buzzer sounded, Marcus hung his head in shame. He had played terribly, and he knew it. He had let Jake get into his head, and he had allowed his emotions to control him. He was frustrated, angry, and disappointed in himself. He didn't know how he was going to turn things around. He didn't know if he even could. The Viper had struck, and the comet was falling fast. He walked off the court, the weight of the world on his shoulders, unsure of what the second half would bring. The locker room was silent, heavy with disappointment. Coach Miller paced back and forth, his brow furrowed. He knew he had to say something to reignite the fire in his team, especially in Marcus. "All right, listen up," Coach Miller began, his voice low but firm. "We're getting our butts kicked out there. We're playing scared, we're making mistakes, and we're letting Jake Thompson dictate the game. That's not us. That's not who we are." He paused, looking directly at Marcus. "Marcus, I know you're struggling. I know he's getting to you. But you can't let him. You're the best player on this court, and you need to start acting like it. Forget about what he's saying. Forget about the pressure. Just play your game. Trust your instincts. Trust your teammates." Then, a voice cut through the tension. It was David, the team's point guard and Marcus's best friend. David wasn't the flashiest player, but he was the heart and soul of the team, a steady presence who always knew what to say. "Coach is right, Marcus," David said, walking over to him and putting a hand on his shoulder. "We need you out there. We need you to be you. We know you're better than this. We all believe in you." He looked around at the rest of the team. "We're a team, right? We win together, and we lose together. And right now, we're losing. But we can turn this around. We just need to play with heart, with passion, and with trust in each other." David's words resonated with Marcus. He looked into his friend's eyes and saw genuine belief, unwavering support. He realized that he wasn't alone in this battle. He had his team, his coach, and his family behind him. He also remembered his mother's words before the game, "No matter what happens, Marcus, I'm proud of you. Just go out there and give it your all. Don't be afraid to fail, and don't ever give up." Something shifted inside Marcus. The anger and frustration began to dissipate, replaced by a renewed sense of determination. He realized that he had been focusing too much on Jake, on his taunts, on his negativity. He had forgotten about the joy of the game, the camaraderie of his teammates, and the love of his family. He took a deep breath and stood up, his eyes filled with resolve. "You're right, David," he said, his voice clear and strong. "We can do this. We will do this. I'm not going to let Jake Thompson ruin our season. I'm going to go out there and play my game, and I'm going to lead us to victory." The rest of the team erupted in cheers, their spirits lifted by Marcus's newfound confidence. They slapped him on the back, offering words of encouragement and support. The locker room, which had been filled with despair just moments before, was now buzzing with energy and optimism. Coach Miller smiled, knowing that Marcus had finally found his focus. "All right, let's go out there and show them what we're made of," he said, clapping his hands together. "Let's play with heart, with passion, and with pride. Let's show them what it means to be a team." As Marcus walked back onto the court, he felt like a different person. He was no longer burdened by doubt or fear. He was confident, determined, and ready to lead his team to victory. He had found his inner strength, and he was ready to unleash it on the Northwood Eagles. The game wasn't over yet. It was time for the comet to rise again. The third quarter began, and it was immediately clear that something had changed. Marcus walked onto the court with a newfound swagger, a glint of determination in his eyes. He was no longer the hesitant, frustrated player from the first half. He was the comet, ready to ignite. The first play of the quarter was a designed play for Marcus. He received the ball at the top of the key, Jake guarding him closely. Instead of forcing a shot, Marcus faked a drive to the basket, then quickly stepped back and launched a three-pointer. The ball arced perfectly through the air and swished through the net. The crowd erupted, their cheers echoing through the arena. Jake, surprised by Marcus's sudden turnaround, tried to trash-talk him, but Marcus simply smiled and ran back on defense. He was no longer affected by Jake's words. He was in the zone, focused solely on the game. On the next possession, Marcus stole the ball from Jake, dribbled down the court, and made a dazzling pass to David, who was wide open under the basket. David scored easily, cutting the Eagles' lead. Marcus was playing with a different energy, a different intensity. He was driving to the basket with confidence, hitting jump shots with accuracy, and making smart passes to his teammates. He was also playing much better defense, anticipating Jake's moves and disrupting his rhythm. The momentum of the game began to shift. The Eagles, who had been so dominant in the first half, were now struggling to keep up with Marcus and his team. Their shots were no longer falling, their passes were getting intercepted, and their defense was starting to crumble. With each basket, each steal, and each assist, Marcus's confidence grew. He was playing with a joy and a passion that he hadn't felt in a long time. He was reminding everyone why he was called the Comet, a force of nature on the basketball court. He hit another three-pointer, then drove to the basket and scored a contested layup. He was unstoppable, a whirlwind of energy and skill. Jake, who had been so cocky in the first half, was now looking flustered and frustrated. The crowd was going wild, chanting Marcus's name and cheering for every play he made. The atmosphere in the arena had completely transformed. The team that had been down by so much at halftime was now mounting a furious comeback. By the end of the third quarter, the Eagles' lead had dwindled to just a few points. Marcus had scored 18 points in the quarter, single-handedly shifting the momentum of the game. He walked off the court, his head held high, knowing that he had turned things around. As he sat on the bench, catching his breath, Coach Miller smiled at him. "That's the Marcus Johnson I know," he said. "Keep playing like that, and we're going to win this game." Marcus nodded, his eyes filled with determination. He knew that the game wasn't over yet, but he was confident that he and his team could finish the job. He was ready for the fourth quarter, ready to continue his comeback, and ready to lead his team to the championship. The comet had risen, and it was shining brighter than ever. The fourth quarter began with a palpable tension hanging in the air. Jake, the Viper, Thompson, who had been so confident and dominant in the first half, was now visibly rattled. He had lost his composure, his trash talk replaced by a frustrated scowl. He couldn't believe that Marcus, the Comet, Johnson had managed to turn the game around so dramatically. He started forcing shots, trying to regain control of the game, but his shots were off, clanging off the rim or sailing wide. He was pressing, trying to do too much, and his teammates were starting to get frustrated with him. He committed a turnover, trying to make a fancy pass that was easily intercepted by David. He fouled Marcus on a drive to the basket, giving him 2 free throws. He was losing his cool, and his game was falling apart. His coach, sensing his desperation, tried to calm him down, but Jake wouldn't listen. He was too focused on Marcus, too determined to prove that he was still the better player. He was letting his ego get in the way of his game. He started resorting to dirty tactics, trying to throw Marcus off his game with cheap shots and subtle fouls. But the referees were watching him closely, and they called him for a flagrant foul after he elbowed Marcus in the face. The crowd booed him loudly, their anger and disappointment palpable. Jake had crossed the line, and he was paying the price for it. He was losing the game, and he was losing the respect of the fans. Marcus, meanwhile, remained calm and focused. He ignored Jake's antics and continued to play his game. He knew that Jake was desperate, and he wasn't going to let him bait him into making mistakes. He hit a jump shot, then made a steal and scored a fast break layup. He was in complete control of the game, leading his team with confidence and skill. Jake, on the other hand, was unraveling, his frustration growing with each passing minute. He committed another turnover, then missed another shot. He was a shadow of his former self, a broken and defeated player. The viper had lost its venom, its fangs dulled by Marcus's brilliance. As the clock ticked down, the Eagles' lead evaporated. Marcus and his team had completed their comeback, taking the lead with just a few minutes left in the game. Jake, realizing that he was about to lose, became even more desperate. He tried to foul Marcus intentionally, hoping to stop the clock, but Marcus was too quick for him. He dodged the foul and scored a layup, putting his team up by 4 points. The crowd erupted, their cheers deafening. Jake hung his head in defeat, knowing that it was over. He had lost the game, and he had lost his battle with Marcus. His trash talk, his dirty tactics, and his arrogance had all backfired. Karma was about to deliver its final blow. With just 10 seconds left on the clock, Marcus's team was up by 1 point. The Eagles had possession of the ball and called a timeout to strategize their final play. The tension in the arena was almost unbearable. As Jake walked back onto the court, he locked eyes with Marcus. He couldn't resist one last attempt to rattle him. "It's not over yet, Comet," he sneered. "We're going to win this game. And you're going to choke." Marcus simply shook his head and smiled. He wasn't going to let Jake's words affect him. He had come too far to let anything derail him now. He knew that the Eagles' final play would likely be for Jake, and he was ready to defend him. The Eagles inbound the ball to Jake, who dribbled towards the basket, looking for an opening. Marcus stayed right in front of him, anticipating his every move. Jake tried to drive past him, but Marcus cut him off, forcing him to the perimeter. With just 2 seconds left on the clock, Jake launched a desperation three-pointer. The ball arced through the air, but it looked short. As the buzzer sounded, the ball bounced off the front of the rim, and Marcus grabbed the rebound. But as he secured the ball, Jake, in a final act of desperation, shoved Marcus from behind. Marcus stumbled, lost his balance, and fell to the ground, clutching his ankle in pain. The referee immediately blew his whistle and called a foul on Jake. The crowd erupted in boos, their anger directed at Jake's unsportsmanlike conduct. The foul meant that Marcus would get 2 free throws, with no time left on the clock. If he made both free throws, his team would win the championship. If he missed one or both, the game would go into overtime. As Marcus lay on the ground, writhing in pain, Jake stood over him, sneering. "That's what you get, rookie," he taunted. "You're not good enough to beat me." But then, something unexpected happened. As Jake was taunting Marcus, he stepped over the line, onto the court, a clear violation. One of the referees immediately spotted the violation and blew his whistle again. The referee signaled a technical foul on Jake for unsportsmanlike conduct and stepping onto the court while the clock had expired. This meant that Marcus's team would get 1 free throw for the technical foul, and then Marcus would get 2 free throws for the initial foul. If they made the technical free throw, and Marcus made at least one of the other 2, his team would win. The crowd went wild, realizing the significance of the technical foul. It was the ultimate act of karma, Jake's taunting backfiring spectacularly, giving Marcus's team a golden opportunity to win the championship. Jake stood there in disbelief, his face pale with shock and anger. He had snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. David stepped up to the free throw line to shoot the technical. The crowd was a roaring sea of noise, a wave of energy that threatened to overwhelm him. He took a deep breath, focused on the rim, and released the ball. It sailed through the air, a perfect arc, and swished through the net. The crowd exploded, their cheers deafening. 1 point. They needed 1 more point to win the championship. The pressure was immense, but David had delivered. Now it was up to Marcus. With his ankle throbbing, Marcus limped to the free throw line. He could barely put any weight on his injured leg, but he knew he had to try. He had to make at least one of these free throws for his team, for his city, for his mother. He took a deep breath, trying to block out the pain and the noise. He focused on the rim, visualizing the ball going through the net. He bounced the ball a few times, steadied himself, and released the shot. The ball arced through the air, a perfect trajectory. It looked good, but then it hit the back of the rim and bounced high. The crowd gasped, their hopes hanging in the balance. But then, the ball dropped through the net. The arena erupted in pandemonium. Marcus had made the free throw. They had won the championship. The buzzer sounded, signaling the end of the game. The score was final. Marcus's team had won by 2 points. His teammates mobbed him, lifting him onto their shoulders and carrying him around the court. The confetti rained down, a shower of gold and silver. The crowd chanted his name, their voices filled with joy and admiration. Coach Miller rushed onto the court and embraced Marcus, his eyes filled with tears. "I'm so proud of you, Marcus," he said. "You're a champion." Even through the pain in his ankle, Marcus smiled. They had done it. They had overcome adversity, they had defeated their rivals, and they had won the championship. It was a dream come true. Amidst the celebration, Marcus noticed Jake standing near the sideline, his head hung low, his face filled with shame. Despite everything that had happened, Marcus felt a pang of sympathy for his rival. He knew that Jake was hurting, that he was disappointed, and that he was regretting his actions. Marcus limped over to Jake, extended his hand, and said, "Good game, Jake." Jake looked up, surprised by Marcus's gesture. He hesitated for a moment, then shook Marcus's hand. "You played well, Marcus," he said, his voice barely audible. "You deserved to win." It wasn't a full apology, but it was a start. It was a sign that Jake had learned a valuable lesson about sportsmanship and humility. It was a reminder that even in the heat of competition, respect and decency should always prevail. As the celebration continued around him, Marcus raised the championship trophy high above his head. He had proven that he was a champion, not just on the court, but also off the court. He had shown that he could overcome adversity, that he could lead his team to victory, and that he could forgive his rivals. He was the Comet, a shining example of skill, determination, and sportsmanship. And tonight, he had truly earned his name. The arena slowly emptied, the jubilant cheers fading into the night. The confetti had been swept away, the lights dimmed, and the echoes of celebration were replaced by the quiet hum of the cleaning crew. But in the Northwood Eagles locker room, the silence was thick with disappointment and regret. Jake, the Viper, Thompson sat alone on a bench, his head in his hands. He was still wearing his uniform, the sweat and grime of the game clinging to him like a shroud. He hadn't showered, hadn't changed, hadn't moved since the final buzzer sounded. He replayed the game in his mind, every missed shot, every turnover, every taunt that had backfired. He cringed at the memory of the flagrant foul, the technical foul, the boos from the crowd. He had let his team down, he had let his city down, and he had let himself down. He thought about Marcus's handshake, the unexpected gesture of sportsmanship amidst the chaos of the celebration. He realized that Marcus had shown him more respect in defeat than he had ever shown Marcus in victory. He thought about his coach's words after the game, "You're a talented player, Jake, but you need to learn to control your emotions. You can't let your ego get in the way of your game. And you need to respect your opponents, even when you're competing against them." He thought about his father, who had always taught him the importance of fair play and integrity. He knew that his father would be disappointed in his behavior, that he would be ashamed of the way he had acted on the court. He finally stood up, his body stiff and sore. He walked over to the mirror and looked at his reflection. He saw a defeated player, a humbled rival, a young man who had made a mistake. He realized that his obsession with Marcus had blinded him, that his desire to win at all costs had led him astray. He had focused so much on tearing Marcus down that he had forgotten to build himself up. He understood that true victory wasn't just about winning the game, it was about winning with class, with dignity, and with respect for your opponents. It was about learning from your mistakes, growing as a person, and becoming a better version of yourself. He made a decision. He knew that he couldn't undo what had happened, but he could learn from it. He could apologize to Marcus, he could apologize to his team, and he could commit to playing with more sportsmanship and integrity in the future. He walked out of the locker room, a changed man. He still had a long way to go, but he was determined to make amends, to earn back the respect he had lost, and to prove that he was more than just the Viper. He was Jake Thompson, a basketball player who had learned a valuable lesson about the true meaning of sportsmanship. And he was ready to start again. He would learn from his mistakes, and he would become a better player and a better person because of it. The taste of defeat was bitter, but the promise of redemption was sweet. He walked out into the night, ready to face the future with a newfound sense of humility and determination.